East Coast Trainsway. Book today at eastcoast.co.uk.
This is LBC, leading Britain's conversation with Sheila Fogarty. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. Sheila Fogarty on LBC.
Hello, good afternoon to you. I'm joined by the Conservative Party Chairman, Grant Shapps. He'll take questions on anything over the next half hour, within reason, of course, from welfare to tax to the NHS. You name it, he's prepared to take your questions. We've already had one on Twitter on fracking, so brace yourself for that, Grant Shapps. And I'll be asking him as well why Prime Minister's questions, well, today it was pretty poor, in my humble opinion, but it's often slightly crazy, isn't it? So we'll see what the point of it all is meant to be. Do keep your calls coming. Questions to Grant Shapps, 0345 6060 973. You can text 84850 or tweet at LBC. Well, we made you sing for your supper as soon as you walked through the door, didn't we? And made you do a little vine that we could tweet out.
Yeah, I don't think it's out there yet. I'll retweet it when it is.
We're getting a vague nod. Yeah.
It is. Okay, I'm going
Anyway, anyone listening knows that you're here. Anyone who's watching Twitter will know that you're here as well to take questions. Let me just reiterate the numbers and the various means of contacting us. 0345 6060 973. If you want to call, you can text as well as ever on 84850. And you can tweet at LBC or tweet me directly at Sheila Fogarty as well, which some of you have already done. Jakey, let's start with Jakey because it's literally just come through. Is Mr. Shapps pro-fracking?
Yeah, I am actually. I think that, you can ignore technology, you can ignore these advances, but just look what's happened in the United States where they embrace this early. They've become much more energy independent. Everyone rightly is concerned about the, cost of their heating bills, their energy bills. This is part of that solution. It's not the only solution. It's just a part of it. I think it can be done safely, effectively, and goodness knows we need the energy.
But it needs to be done, if it's done at all, it needs to be done in the right way for the communities in which it's happening, doesn't it?
Definitely. One of the things we've done is said, look, a percentage of the money that comes in from fracking, that's got to go to the community. Where the planning permission's provided, that's got to go to the community. So we can, it's actually not anywhere nearly as disruptive as building an oil well or something, and can be done in a way where the local community benefits, maybe gets to build whatever it is they want in their local area. So they'll get the income and actually provide the energy this country needs for security in the future. I think it makes perfect sense. And what we shouldn't do, by the way, is ban it, which is what's been going on. I think France has banned it, which is, I think, why would you want to cut off that access?
Tell that to a lot of Lancastrians and others. They'd quite like you to ban it, I think. But anyway, we'll leave fracking for now, unless more calls come in on it. I can see calls coming in already. While they start to collect online for us there, let me ask you about Prime Minister's questions. You will have sat through many more than I have, but I spent 3 years reporting on Prime Minister's questions on a weekly basis. And I don't think I can remember one as poor as today. And I say poor because we have, 99 days to go to an election, as the Prime Minister pointed out in Prime Minister's questions. And we had the same old, you want to weaponise the NHS. Did you say it? Apologise for it. You want to privatise the NHS. No, we don't. Yes, you do. No, and on it goes. It's well, from a voter's point of view, and definitely from a journalist's point of view, it's terribly dispiriting.
Well, I absolutely understand where you're coming from, and I think that the public, if you ask them, would say the same thing. But we're all a little bit, if you like, sort of in two minds about this, aren't we? Because on one hand, it is completely raucous and terrible and, not what you'd expect from a civilised mother of all parliaments. On the other hand, I've got a 5-year waiting list of Welwyn-Hatfield constituents who want to come to Prime Minister's questions. Now, they must be coming for a reason, and the reason is, of course, it's a bit of theatre. It does mean, on a serious note, because sometimes I'm in there for the preparation, that the Prime Minister has to know about every single thing that his government's doing, what every minister's doing, be on top of his brief. No other Prime Minister or leader in the world has to go into that much detail. And I think that's a very good thing. It does keep the Prime Ministers grounded in this country.
And yet, however well briefed he is, all he could do again was tit for tat on weaponise.
Well, I'm not going to pretend it's the kind of pinnacle of
Political debate.
It just isn't, is it? But as I say, that the fact that on a Wednesday afternoon you'll get 1 million viewers on the television, the fact that you will end up with, I've ended up with 5-year waiting lists of constituents who are desperate to come and see it, means it does provide a bit of sort of hearty debate right at the centre of this nation's life. Most importantly, it keeps the Prime Minister on his or her toes.
Well, can I ask you about the NHS in a rather different way? I'm going to put the word... I'm not going to weaponise the word weaponise in the course of this conversation, you'll be pleased to hear. Labour set out its plan, made its plan very clear for the NHS yesterday. And I was interested to note just a week or so ago that there's only been a 1% rise in privately provided NHS treatment since the coalition government came into power. 1%, tiny. Sounds tiny. I know we have a huge bill for the NHS, but still. And yet, Labour says that £1 billion of private contract is up for grabs in Staffordshire alone. So that actually adds up to a lot of treatment.
Well, I think look, first of all, we believe that the NHS should be publicly owned. We think it should be protected and improved. We think it should be efficiently run and valued. So, we put our money where our mouth is. This government, this Conservative-led coalition, has put £12.7 billion more into the NHS. We've got more doctors and nurses, more people receiving treatment through the NHS. So that's our intention. Now, Labour wouldn't they, go around saying, oh, no, you can't trust this. You can't trust the Conservatives with the NHS. That's going to be what they say. But what I would say to people is, look what Labour have done to the NHS in Wales, where they run the National Health Service. No,
that's too much like Prime Minister's questions. You've got to do better than that.
Look, Labour are going to say, here's our plan for the NHS, and by the way, the Conservatives would do this. What I'm saying is, don't worry about predicting the future. Just look at what's already happened.
Well, they've said
and that's, I think that's a fair argument.
They've said they'll spend more. You're not saying that.
No, we are saying we'd spend more. What Labour have done in Wales is to spend less, and that's been the problem in Wales, where they have enormous problems with the NHS. In England, we have spent more, £12.7 billion more to be precise, and that's more than inflation.
But huge savings required across the board.
Listen, we can't have a brilliant NHS unless we've got a brilliant economy. You've got to realise that everyone wants to have an NHS that can serve the nation. That means you've got to have an economy which is capable of sustaining the NHS, and that's why it's important that we've got the fastest growing economy in the world. Just before
I move on to calls from Steve and Lynn, Steve in Bristol, Lynn in Thamesmead, just to finish on the NHS, just for now anyway, do you listen to people like Jackie Davis from the Consultants Association, who says that provision in private in the NHS is undercutting some NHS services? So you could end up with a scenario where individual hospitals no longer provide particular services like, I don't know, leg break fixing or whatever, the private provision starts to undercut what's available in the NHS.
Well, I think the NHS needs to provide a comprehensive service for everyone. I'm Conservative Party chairman. I've never had private health insurance in my life. The NHS has saved my life when I had cancer. I think that it needs to do everything. The arguments about how you organise it and the rest of it are very important, but actually being the party who have committed to and have put more money into the NHS and would do the same again, I think means more than anything else. Just final point on this privatisation. There's only been one hospital ever privatised. The decision was made by Andy Burnham, who is the Labour's was Labour Health Secretary and is now Shadow Health Secretary, presumably would be Health Secretary if Labour won. We are not the party who are Conservatives are not going to privatise the NHS, but we are going to make sure it's properly funded and it runs efficiently.
Steve in Bristol, what was the question you wanted to ask Grant Shapps?
Yes, hello. I read yesterday that one of your policy implementations that if you do gain government at the election, is to remove housing benefit from anyone aged 16 to 21. And my question is, did you actually bother asking any homeless charities about what that impact would have?
Yeah, it's 18 to 21. And I used to be housing minister, so very close to the homelessness sector, and set up the Homelessness Foundation when we were in opposition. So homelessness is like a passion of mine. And here is the thing. If you go out to work today, if you're listening to this and you're 18 to 21 and you're working, the chances of you even renting in the private sector, let alone buying, is almost nil. It's very, very difficult to be able to get the deposit together to go out and rent when you start off in work. It can't be right, therefore, that somebody of working age can not work and then get access to housing. That just isn't fair on the people who are paying the taxes all along. So we have to have a system which is fair on both sides. I do talk to the homelessness charities a great deal, listen to them a great deal, and worked with them a great deal. And by the way, when I was Housing Minister, funded them a great deal, Shelter and others. I'm passionate about resolving homelessness, but you don't resolve homelessness by having taxpayers pay for housing that the taxpayer themselves, someone 18 to 21, couldn't possibly afford to pay for themselves to rent a home.
I'll come back to you in a sec, Steve, but that's the scenario you've just described there isn't the only one. You know, that there are young teenagers leaving their family home. And okay, at 18 you class them as adults, but there are people leaving their family home and losing all of the parental and social support that I certainly got from family and still do, way beyond turning 18. There are people who are in acute family situations who have no support to draw on. Will they lose it too?
No, so, I mean, you've got to always have a safety net, and there are people who are in particularly vulnerable situations. I have, for example, in my own constituency, special projects which enable people to leave home but have that protection of a system around them. But actually, if you're 18, 19 and the situation at home is so critical, then the answer is generally not just to go out to a flat in the private rented sector, just be cast out there.
But there would still be social support, would there, for
right,
those individuals?
What you want is specific targeted support. So the sort of organisations who operate in my constituency across the country are organisations who bring the package of support together for a young person.
But with how much government help? Because I do some work for a homelessness charity that has lost an awful lot of grant help.
Well, one of the things that actually, certainly during the first half of this Parliament, where I was closer to the numbers, we absolutely made sure that the homeless in this country have the best support and safety net of probably any country in the world. Okay. So, for example, we have policies that prevent, in this country, slightly different topic, but we have policies that prevent anybody from ever sleeping rough for a second night on the street. Something called StreetLink, which is an app that we helped develop, which enables people to report someone. If you see a rough sleeper in London or elsewhere, download the StreetLink app or phone the number and you can bring them support.
Tweeted it just the other day.
Yeah, thank you.
Steve, are you satisfied with the answer? You might not still agree with the policy, but are you satisfied with the answer?
Absolutely not. My wife set up a night stop specifically to target these children, or these teenagers rather, okay? In 18 months, they had to help 200 young people and provide over 500 nights of emergency accommodation. And I will point out that was with no government support. I'm the chairman of a soup run. I serve people on the streets who are homeless, and I'm afraid the standard rhetoric that the Minister has just given is the cloud cuckoo land that all parties talk about. I'm sorry, that's not what I see as a volunteer on the streets. That is not what I see.
So, Steve, just briefly, this is not standard rhetoric. This is a passion of mine. I've been involved in it many years. I've written many reports and been at the practical end, have slept rough and gone out with the street teams to talk to homeless people and try to help them. You know as well as I do that the way you help a homeless person is to get them out of what is probably a very complex situation that has led them to be sleeping rough in the first place. It's never as black and white as perhaps listeners would come to believe from your description, and it usually requires a whole host of different organisations, government and the rest, to come together. We fund homelessness support in this country far better than almost anywhere else in the world, which is why we have less homelessness here than London, Paris, Berlin, almost any other city in the world.
Would you give cash to a homeless person? It's the great dilemma.
No, if you give cash to a homeless person, you don't know how that support's going to be used. What you need to do is bring them help. And that is why I pioneered the StreetLink app, which you can download on your phone or call the number or use the website, and you'll get an outreach team anywhere in this country come to them in order to make sure they get into a hostel. And by the way, there are enough hostel places in this country to help everybody who needs one.
Steve in Bristol, many thanks. Want to get through as many calls as possible, but just briefly get the travel news now at 17 minutes past 3.
I'm Joanne Webb in the LBC Travel Centre on the M25 on the Surrey stretch. Very slow from junction 13 at Staines up to 15 at the M4, and that was after an accident that happened earlier. But finally some good news on the Essex stretch of the M25. All the lanes are back open anti-clockwise between junctions 28 at the A12 and 27 at the M11. That oil spillage has now been cleared. Still very busy in London in Purley because the A23 Purley Way is closed southbound following an accident. And also in London there are long delays on the South Circular Road in East Sheen. That's because of roadworks and delays in both directions on the North Circular Road towards the Hanger Lane gyratory, and that's because the traffic lights aren't working. In Somerset, there are delays on the M5 northbound between junctions 23 at Bridgewater North and junction 22 at Burnham-on-Sea, and that's because a car's broken down, so one lane is closed for recovery. Problems in Cheshire with the M62 eastbound. It is slow from junction 11 at Birchwood to 12 at the Eccles interchange. That's because a tree has fallen onto the motorway, so one lane is closed. Just hearing about some problems in Manchester. The A34 Key Street has been closed in both directions. Some wooden panels have come loose on Key House, so that's causing quite lengthy queues. And on the trains, big problems for Thameslink services. They're still majorly disrupted between St Pancras International and Blackfriars, and now there's been a signal failure, so there are delays up to St Albans. Keeping you moving, your next travel updates in half an hour.
This is LBC.
Sail aboard one of Celebrity Cruises' award-winning ships and experience some of the world's most fascinating and captivating destinations. Book now at celebritycruises.co.uk and save up to £300 on selected European sailings with our incredible sail across Europe. Conditions apply. At or protected.
Guys, I can't get the presentation up on the big screen.
Are you connected to the network?
Have you got the HDMI cable in?
Do you have the screen share passcode?
Have you got the new code for it? Wait, there's a new code?
Let's get Doug from IT.
Please don't. Doug hates me.
Meetings don't have to be a nightmare. Choose Join Me and make your meetings simpler, faster and more efficient online. Start your free trial today at join.me.
Down to Northgate, flexible plans and vans and other vehicles too. Down to Northgate, they're down the road and up your street and close to you. Down to Northgate, they'll fix you up and sort you out, won't leave you up the creek. Down to Northgate, you can hire with no palaver, telling your mate I'd rather hire a van from Northgate, their service can't be beat.
For flexible plans on a great range of vans, get down to Northgate Vehicle Hire. Now open in Dartford and other locations across London. Text VANS to 60070 or visit downtonorthgate.com.
In business, it's important to be smart, especially when it comes to energy. That's why you should choose npower Business. We're doing lots of things to make energy work better for small and medium-sized businesses like yours. We're offering a choice of a fixed or variable plan. We're installing smarter metering for accurate billing to help with your budgeting. And we're resolving telephone queries QuickSmart with 90% of customer service calls now answered within 1 minute. After all, time is money, so don't waste yours. Visit npower.com/smart today. Simple and clear, the way energy should be.
Have I got PPI? If you've taken out a mortgage, loan or credit card with any bank and can't remember paying payment protection insurance, you're not alone. Find out if you have a PPI claim with haveigotppi.com. We don't need your paperwork or account number, just the name of the lender, and we'll do the rest. It's that easy. You could be owed thousands, so text FIND to 80800.
Have I got PPI.com?
That's FIND to 80800.
Sheila Fogarty on LBC.
The Conservative Party chairman, Grant Shapps, is with us taking your calls. Jakey asked at the very beginning whether you were pro-fracking. You said you were. Jakey has tweeted, thank you ever so much for asking my questions. So yeah, it's very polite of him.
Wow.
You're very welcome, Jakey. We have another call on fracking in just a second from Theo in Ealing. But just before that, let me bring you this news. There's a block on fracking being announced in Scotland. The Scottish Government has announced a block on planned fracking operations pending further inquiries. Why can't you do that?
Because, look, as I said at the top, I don't think it makes sense to ban technologies just because they're new. It's not that they're new and untested. Let's face it, fracking's been going on in the States for quite a few years. And as I mentioned before, it's made them energy pretty much independent. It's one of the reasons why they've moved in that direction. So, you know, it's like a lot of new technologies. My children are IVF children. I can remember the first IVF baby and people saying this is a Frankenstein technology, it's terrible. Nowadays there are hundreds of thousands, no one thinks twice about it. I don't think we should be scared of it because it's new, particularly when it's tested.
Theo on fracking. Hi, Theo.
Hi, Sheila. Just a question to Grant. He's very quick to point out all the benefits of fracking, but why does he never sort of highlight any of the difficulties? Surely, if we're going to benefit from a new technology, should be a long-term benefit?
Well, I think energy being cheaper, and therefore, families not having to pay out so much of their budgets on that energy is a good thing. I think that unless we have some other plan, we're always going to need power and energy in this country. So I think it makes sense to have diversified source of energy. So we shouldn't just be doing fracking, that would be mad, but we need to do nuclear as well. We've got lots of wind. I think more of that needs to be offshore, and other sources of power. But I don't think this should all be put all your eggs in one basket. But I don't think either you should ignore something which could be very significant, like fracking.
Brief response, Theo, because I want to talk to Lynn soon.
That was a swerve. I asked him why does he never talk about the negative implications of fracking.
Well, I'm not sure which you have in mind. I mean, I think more power and energy is very good. Obviously, there's a safety case to make. That's why we have the health and safety executive. These types of things are very safe in this country because of it.
Apparently, it's been said that it actually takes more thermal units. It costs more energy to extract the energy you're getting, and the fact that a lot of fresh water is actually needed. Fresh water is obviously in the dwindling supply. So I don't understand how you think it cannot be.
So the interesting thing about every different energy solution is I have never heard of one, from wind to nuclear to oil to gas, where people say, the negatives aren't bigger than the positives. The truth is, you're absolutely right to say that there are, of course, implications of fracking, just as there are of dealing with nuclear waste or anything else. But it doesn't mean that we should just turn our backs on that technology. And as I say, look at what's happened in the States. We don't need to guess about this. We've seen how it's made them energy independent.
OK, Theo, thank you. Fracking has taken up a fair bit of the half hour. So let's talk to Lynn now. Lynn in Thamesmead. I know you want to talk about jobs, Lynn, employment.
Yeah, I just want to know whether what you can do about someone in their late 40s, 50s that have been made redundant, what the Conservatives would do about getting us off of benefits and into jobs. I know there's a lot of apprentice jobs out there, which is good and fair enough for the young, because I've got a young boy. But it's just that there seems to be not a lot going on for the older people.
How long have you been out of work, Lynn?
I've been out of work for a year. I got made redundant, and that's where I stand at the moment. So
yes, Lynn, it's a great question, and good luck with your search. So, I mean, one thing on the apprenticeships is that people tend to think of apprenticeships for being something for younger people. Actually, what we're trying to do is make sure that plenty of people who may have worked before and need retraining can also access the apprenticeship marketplace. And one thing in my constituency, I have a website, Well and Hatful Apprentices, where people can go and sign themselves up, and the companies on the other side take people on. And actually, one of the things which really surprised me about it, I suppose, is that it's not all been sort of school leavers joining up. There have been people retraining. So that's one thing. The other thing I just wanted to say, and I know after a year you will have been down this route, but a really good Job Centre Plus will be interested and concerned about trying to fill in any gaps in skills and shape you for the market. So people might need computer skills or whatever. So I hope you're getting all of that help as well. And I just wanted to wish you every success. There are more jobs.
Sorry, I've got that from Trust Thamesmead, not actually the Job Centre, because I tried to find things myself. And it's okay, these computer skills and things like that, but sometimes we're not all, sort of like got the brains for answering questions on a computer. We do these computer skills for about 4 hours a day or something like that, and then at the end of so many months we get asked questions via the computer. And sometimes I was never good at school. I was good if I went into a job and then someone showed me the ropes, like as you would an apprentice. But I can't afford I can't afford £2.73 an hour.
Are apprentices ruled out for people over a certain age or not?
No. And actually, as I say, it's been a surprisingly big growth in the number of apprentices who have been in work in the past and then trying to retrain or want to find a new niche. But also, I mean, I think you're right about computers. It's not for everyone, I know, but a basic level of computer skills, I think something like 80%, 90% of jobs being advertised now require something. So having those basic skills is important, but you shouldn't need to pass a computer test
and yet,
itself
Lynn,
to get a job.
We were hearing just a few weeks ago about employers and big employers actually saying that there was a lack of the soft skills, those personable skills. And Lynn, clearly by the phone call and the conversation you're having with us, you certainly have those. So you should keep heart, I hope.
Well, also, it sounds like you're going out and trying to do something about it yourself from the description you just gave. And I want to just wish you every luck. I mean, the good news is unemployment has been falling at some of the record rates, and I really hope that you're the next person to benefit from that.
I beg to disagree with you on things like that, but as I say, I did work on Sage, and a lot of places want Excel now, and I'm not even convinced that there are that amount of jobs out there, because some that I've applied for have been going for about 3 years.
Well, and it's worth pointing out, on Grant Shapps, I'm sure you'd accept this, that a huge number of these new jobs are self-starters.
Well, it's quite a lot of self-starters, but a lot of time I hear people say, oh, it's all part-time jobs. It's not 80% full-time jobs. Well, look, I just really want to wish you every success. You sound like a sort of go-getter, and hopefully with the way that the economy is now growing and the recovery underway, I hope that you are really very near to being able to get another job.
Lynn, thank you for your call. Lynn sounds like what David Cameron calls frequently people who work hard and do the right thing. But she is, and it's not working.
Well, look, we only just met on the radio here. I don't know every single detail, but I do think that somebody who is prepared to kind of put themselves in a position of being work ready for an employer when that job ad comes up, you can go for it. There are huge numbers of job adverts in this system right now. So, unemployment at 5.8% and falling very quickly. I hope Lynn's next there.
Youth unemployment going in the wrong direction again?
Well, I mean, you look at youth unemployment,
it's
much, well, if you look at 1 month's figures, but if you look at overall, the youth unemployment's fallen dramatically over the last few years. And look, I hope it carries on in the same direction. We certainly don't want to see what happened in Greece, where they didn't deal with some of these long-term problems, and youth unemployment's 50%.
Well, people like Lynn are going to lose some welfare, probably, aren't they? We've got the 12 billion of welfare cuts that you and I spoke about last time that the Prime Minister reiterated this week, including reducing the welfare cap by £3,000 or so. So, again, you said last time when we spoke, it's about getting welfare where it is needed. How can you be sure? We've just had it illustrated in our conversation with Lynn, a woman who works hard, does the right thing, tries to find a job, can't. We can say these noble ideals about getting welfare to the right people working hard and doing the right thing being the people that will succeed in Britain, and yet we have examples where it's not true.
So I don't know Lynn's sort of financial situation, but
even more generally about getting welfare to the right people. You can't know that you're getting welfare to the right people.
Well, so I think the evidence is that unemployment has been tumbling at rates we've never seen before in this country. We've got more people in work at 30.7 million people than we've ever seen in this country, more women in work than ever before. But I would say, specifically on the welfare point, what we've done is capped welfare at £26,000. You'd still have to have a £35,000 salary to earn £26,000 after tax. That's what's available in welfare now. David Cameron said yesterday, if we're re-elected, we'd cap that at £23,000. You won't be able to earn more than £23,000 on welfare. I suppose that's probably still 30 grand. So the point is, what we want is welfare to support people as a safety net, but everyone who's working to pay that welfare shouldn't feel that they're worse off for being in work. And that's the situation which we've been reversing. It's why we've got more people in work than ever before, because it pays to work. OK, we have to finish now. I know we only had half an hour. Many thanks for coming in again. For the next half hour, do keep your calls coming, your questions, your reactions as well. 0345 606 0973. You can text 84850 and tweet at LBC. This is LBC. It's 3:31. Let's get the headlines from Simon Conway.
Tesco has told around 2,000 of its staff that their jobs are at risk. The company has announced which 43 unprofitable stores are to close as part of cost-saving measures. The Israeli military says 2 of its soldiers have been killed following a Hezbollah strike on an army convoy near the Lebanese border. A Spanish United Nations peacekeeper was also killed in clashes. The Health Secretary has played